Okay, and welcome to the next of our E3 conference post-mortems, this time looking at the PC gaming show brought to us by AMD and PC Gamer. Not that you would have guessed that AMD had anything to do with this. But for this one I'm joined by, again, my trusty companion, Super Dragon 64.
Good evening.
And for the first time this E3, we have Karl with us.
Hi, how's it going? I was the only other person that watched the whole PC gaming show, so that's why I'm here.
I think we were the only three people in the world that watched the PC gaming show. I think I actually missed the start of the Ubisoft conference because it kind of ran later than I was expecting. There was they showed an awful lot of stuff. Some really interesting, some not so interesting. But definitely some stuff to kind of talk about. So let's just kind of kick right into it. They kicked off with what I think was probably the biggest game they had to show, which was Dawn of War 3. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I was a big fan specifically of the second one. I mean, I never really played much of the first one, and I struggled to get into it, but I loved the second one. I loved the squad-based RTS elements. I loved the heroes, which I know kind of puts me in a kind of minority because I know most people preferred the first one. But yeah, I'm very glad to see them doing a new one. What did you guys think, Karl?
It looked interesting. I'm not a huge fan of the series. I don't mean I dislike it. I mean I never really got into it. But I thought it looked cool.
Mm-hmm.
I might play it.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I think from the footage they showed, I mean, I've kind of looked, and I think it looks very early. Like the footage they showed, and I think it looked a bit bare almost. I don't know if it was maybe just the kind of planet they were showing it on, but it looked like it was missing like a lot of detail that I would normally expect to be there. What else? Yeah, I thought it was nice to see them. They showed off, the Eldar for a change instead of orcs or Tyranids. So it was good to see them there as well. What about you, Dragon? What did you take away from Dawn of War?
It looked interesting, and it's good to see RTS coming back in style because I played a lot of those growing up. And what the developers said about how what we saw was a small part of the E3 demo, which is a small part of a mission in the final game, makes it look like the final version will have a big scope. So I'm interested to see how it develops, but it did look early because the graphics weren't anything to write home about, and the frame rate did look very slow and inconsistent. So
yeah,
I'm hoping it picks up.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think they did kind of say at the start actually that it was fairly early, and not to judge them on it, which was it day 9 instantly went no, but we will. By the way, I thought he did a really good job hosting. I thought he was quite funny. And I liked almost the kind of chat show vibe he had going. I quite liked that.
I love that. Yeah, he was part of what made this easily the best conference so far, and probably the best of the week.
Really? Wow. Okay. I mean, I wouldn't have went that far. I mean, I thought it was really good, but in terms of conferences, I wouldn't put it as high as that so far. But we'll get to that in the end. But yeah, certainly Dawn of War 3 I thought was a really strong opening for it. It kind of gave me really high hopes for the rest of the show, and I think maybe didn't quite live up to it, but there was still some really interesting stuff there. So yeah, Karl, anything else you got to say on Dawn of War 3? What do you think? Is it something you'd be interested in getting?
Well, I think this was kind of a point for me with this conference. As someone that wasn't a huge fan of the series before this, I mean, yeah, the footage looked interesting. I liked that it looked kind of frantic, and I was like, oh yeah, that looks kind of exciting. I didn't really get a real complete picture or a thorough feel for the gameplay based on the relatively short amount of footage that they showed.
Yeah.
I mean, and this was one of the longer segments as well. I mean, a lot of the trailers that followed were really short.
Yeah, I mean, definitely they did spend a bit more time on this one at the start, and I think this is literally the first in-game footage of the game they've shown. So I think it's clearly very early days with it, and it's kind of hard to see exactly what the greater context of the game's going to be. But certainly from that first teaser trailer they released about a month ago, which was bloody brilliant, by the way. It was one of the best teaser trailers I've ever seen for a game. I've been looking forward to it, especially because I really did like Dawn of War 2. So yeah, it'll be kind of good to see what they do with that. And I think they've said there'll be more footage out on the 24th of June, so that's something to look forward to as well. Okay, so moving on to the next game we're going to look at. Now, what we're going to do is we're not going to look at every game, we're just going to look at some highlights of everything that we've seen, because there was a lot shown. So we're going to pick out the things that kind of really appeal to us, or that we really feel need to kind of be talked about. So, and for me, the next thing that kind of really stuck out for me was Giant Cop. That whole concept from the very start, I was like, okay, this looks kind of mental. And then the bit where it's the hippies protesting and they picked up the bus and threw it at them, I was sold on it in that very second. So yeah, I absolutely loved it. I wrote down, like, take out hippies, 70s style, looks awesome. And then obviously it turns out it's a VR game, so part of me kind of hopes there's going to be like a non-VR version of it, because obviously I don't have a VR setup. But yeah, I think that looks really cool, really, really cool.
It definitely looks, as in when I was paying more attention to what was on screen than what was being said about it. So I actually missed that it was for VR, but when I saw it, I did think, yeah, this is definitely a VR game. You can see you're grabbing these people and throwing them around. You would do that with the motion controls that come with the Vive. So it looks like it would probably be one of the best uses of the Vive, and I'm looking forward to experiencing it.
Yeah, I mean, it looked really tactile, didn't it? Like, there's a lot of like weight and that was being chucked onto its hippie. It looked like it would be really satisfying to like actually pick up people, even throw them around in a kind of grim way.
Yeah, how can you just not love to do that? So I'm excited to try that and grab it. It's definitely pushing me towards buying a Vive.
Yeah, I mean, certainly. There were a couple of things just in the trailer that I looked at and I was like, yeah, I love that. I love that whole idea. Like I said, there was like throwing the bus on the hippies. There was the bit where like he just randomly threw that woman in the sea. It was just like, oh, you fuck off, and just like splash. I thought that was brilliant, and so they getting the microscope, not the microscope, the thingy glass. What are they called? Magnifying glass. That's really bad. And just like zooming in on this wee person in the street, I think it had lots of little touches that I really liked. So I'll be interested to see where it goes with that. And like I said, hopefully it'll come to more than just VR, because like I said, I don't think I'm going to have VR for quite a while. But if when I do get it, it's definitely something I'm going to be looking at. Okay, so jumping on to the kind of the next thing that we kind of want to talk about was like AMD, when what I referred to in the forum as the AMD advert section, where the CEO of AMD came out and she showed off some of the new cards. She talked about the Polaris tech, and then we got one of the AMD girls came on modelling the backpack PC. Now, Karl, I believe you specifically wanted to kind of talk about this.
I don't understand it. I think it's nonsense. I think it's absurd. Who would want it?
I'm still trying to work that out for myself. It's just something that you just can't believe exists, and it does actually exist.
I mean, if you don't want to be restricted by wires in a VR setup, I mean, that's a noble goal. Making the setup wireless, putting your R&D kind of tech and research into that, would surely be a better solution, especially long term. I mean, that backpack has to be so heavy, heavy,
and hot. Her back must be burning,
especially with AMD cards in.
Yeah, it's not going to be particularly cool. I don't know. The only thing I can think of some applications for it where it would be kind of useful, but not really in a consumer kind of setting. if you're talking, if you were talking like a bespoke VR experience, say, because you know how you can get like roller coasters now that have got VR headsets that do stuff like that. So thinking, one of these kind of standalone things you would go and you would pay to do. Maybe something like you've got a building set up with all these rooms, and you put on the VR thing, and then when you walk through it, it completely transforms the area that you're in. So you've got something physical you can react to, but you've got this VR PC strapped to your back, so you don't have to worry about wires coming with you as you walk through it. Almost like an experience type thing. Could be potentially quite interesting, but yeah, I don't see many consumers buying it.
No, it doesn't seem to have a clear market. And I think that AMD is just trying to ride the VR train, but is en route to a very strange destination.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine just walking down the street with it on? It's like VR headset on. Da, 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 da. You're walking down the street, people looking at you weird, and you don't care because you're like, walking through the through the future or something like that, because you can see what you want to see, rather than all the random people looking at you like you're some kind of freak.
I'll tell you what, I wouldn't want to be AMD's lawyer the first time someone puts their back out playing VR tennis with a 10-kilogram backpack on.
Or when a power supply explodes. Yeah, it's not going to be fun, but yeah. So it was a bit of a strange segment. I mean, as usual. I mean, obviously they showed off the cards that they're going to be selling, which is fine. I can get that. I can understand that. Why they actually bring them to the conference and go, oh yeah, here's my box. Here's a graphics card. Okay, it's a bit of silicon. Good show. But I suppose it gives them something to show. Okay, so
I get it from
yeah.
I get it from like a showmanship perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Do you not think it's odd that they did those little Doom demos, didn't they? With no real technical details. I mean, the kind of theme of the show was PC gaming is special. PC gamers are smart. They like customizing stuff. They like knowing what's going on inside. That was like a message that was pushed several times. When it came to we've got the CPU out, we've got the GPUs out, it was very, very light on the actual specification, which I thought was very odd and a bit concerning.
Could be. I mean, it could just be. I can maybe understand why they would avoid something like that. It's maybe that they just want to, they don't want to get bogged down and going, oh, it does this and it does this and it does this at these figures, because they know there's people watching who maybe aren't that interested and would maybe just like, I just want to see the games that were shown, kind of thing. So maybe that would be why they do it. But certainly, yeah, I mean, you would think they would maybe put something up on the screen, just going, even just a pop-up saying this product has this, for people who are interested. So yeah, I suppose that could have been a bit better explained. But,
I think that at most she said it was like 2.4 times faster than a certain other AMD card. And yeah, at least having some reference charts with older cards or a bit more on that would have helped. But I was happy for that segment to end as quickly as possible, so I didn't mind too much.
Yeah, I think you said your blood is Nvidia green.
It is bright green, the way it's supposed to be.
Hardware wars, fun. Anyway, moving on. So yeah, I mean the next kind of one I wanted to talk about briefly was Killing Floor 2. Moving on from early access in the autumn to full release finally, because it's been in early access now for quite a while. So yeah, looking good, and obviously they put out the new expansion pack. I think, well, not the new expansion pack, but the new content pack went live during the show with a bit of show theatre where he got his phone out and pushed a button and it made a noise.
It has been. I mean, I haven't played it since around the launch time, but it was fantastic then, and it's come a long way with more content, and now the newest one was launched tonight. So and with the free weekend this weekend on Steam, it's a great time to check it out, and it's a great game to play, especially with friends. So I'm looking forward to playing it on Friday night.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Killing Floor. I never really played the first one, but I ended up getting into the early access version of the second one when all you guys I think were kind of playing it. So I played with a load of you guys, and I was like, this is really good. But I haven't played it in a while, so yeah, I mean, the new content and seeing how far it's came since I last played it definitely makes me more interested in going back and giving it a shot again. So definitely something to maybe look at getting for Friday, and doing something Friday night with it. What about you, Karl? You played much Killing Floor?
Well, I really liked Killing Floor 1, actually. I always preferred it to the original Left 4 Dead, which I guess was kind of similar-ish timescale. So I think what's really cool about what we just announced for Killing Floor 2 is that it's kind of reached feature parity with Left 4 Dead 2 now. And that's pretty exciting, because I prefer the series to Left 4 Dead. I mean, with that versus mode in particular, I mean, that's going to be fun.
Yeah,
it reminds me of
it
reminds me of the counter-operative mode from Perfect Dark. And it always seemed weird that we never saw that again since Perfect Dark 64. So hopefully it's on the same level.
Yeah.
Or even better.
I was speaking to Delaganash a few nights ago actually, and we were talking about Perfect Dark and counter-operative mode. And what he said, well, something he pointed out that I'd never really thought about, is that the invasion mechanics from like Dark Souls are very similar to something like counter-operative, where it's like you're both within this single-player world, and one of you is trying to basically stop and kill the other, and while the other one's trying to go about their kind of their objective. And it's something I'd not really thought about, but I was like, yeah, actually that kind of fits.
That is a great way of thinking about it. I never thought of it like that. So yeah, it's a great mechanic in Dark Souls, and good to see.
Yeah, so glad to see some more stuff for Killing Floor, and I'm sure that's going to do very well when it comes out of early access. Well, I think it's done very well in early access, and I think at some point it's also heading to the consoles at some point, I believe. So hopefully it'll do well there too.
It's announced for PS4, and yeah, I think the only disappointment around Killing Floor from this was that the VR one is exclusive to Oculus, which is a shame because it looked great.
It's a shame, yeah. I mean, the VR stuff is kind of segregated in that regard. It's like, I want this game, but I've bought the wrong headset, so I can't play it. That seems, especially at this early point, it seems really silly to me that they're trying to really push VR as the future, that they're already kind of integrating these closed systems into it, especially on PC. It seems daft. I mean, I know that there are workarounds for it already, but it's just a kind of hassle that we could be doing without, I think. But that's a conversation for another time. Okay, so kind of moving on from Killing Floor, and then Obsidian came out and they showed a little bit of Tyranny, their new kind of isometric RPG, which I thought looked pretty decent actually. And I'm not traditionally a fan of those kind of RPGs, but certainly I thought it looked quite good, quite polished and shiny looking, and also it was kind of running with the concept what if evil won, which I thought was quite interesting. Dragon, you especially kind of wanted to talk about this one, didn't
you? Yeah, the trailer looked fantastic, and we've seen games from the bad guy's perspective and things like Overlord, but it still looks like it's doing its own thing, and I think it's got an ancient Egyptian setting, which I've always enjoyed, so it's ticking so many boxes, and definitely one I'm looking to grab as soon as possible. It looks fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of got the impression it was, it's channeling all those kind of old school RPGs from like the mid to late 90s. Your Planescape Torments and your Baldur's Gates and stuff. So I think it's kind of cool to see that kind of subgenre RPG making a comeback. Even though I've never really kind of got on with them myself, I know a lot of people really like them, so I'm glad to see them getting a resurgence. Karl, are you into those kind of RPGs? Is that something you'd be interested in?
Well, I liked Planescape Torment, of course, which was a great game. And thematically, could see this being a kind of love letter to games like Planescape, which were very dark in terms of art. So from that perspective, it's pretty exciting, I think.
Yeah, again, I mean, definitely one to watch, and especially coming from Obsidian, who we all know and love, and wish would be given another chance to do another Fallout game, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Which is a shame, but yeah, I mean, Obsidian got a good track record for excellent RPGs, so it's definitely one to be watching. Okay, and then so next up we're going to talk about the Turing test, which again, Dragon, was one you kind of wanted to talk about. Now, it's when I looked at it, I mean, I think it looks very Portal, very Portal.
Yeah, it started off like as such, it was, just something that didn't catch my attention, but as we got into seeing the gameplay, as you said, it stepped into something that looked very much like Portal, and it reminded me of when I was playing that, and how you'd solve the puzzles, and it'd be quite creative in how you did that, so I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of this, and how it works with its puzzles. So it could be something fantastic, just like Portal was.
Yeah, I mean, what I liked that they were kind of talking about it was, is there life on Mars, or is there robot life on Mars, or some not Mars, Europa, was the kind of thing they were kind of pushing with that. So I wasn't entirely sure what the kind of storyline of it is, or how solving these puzzles, answers that question, or what the context for them is. But certainly it'll be interesting to see, where they go with it, if they do kind of stick with it's kind of like Portal, or if they do, or if that's only part of it and it goes off and does other things as well. So yeah, I mean, it's something to look at, I think. Karl, what did you think of the Turing test? Is it something that would agree with you?
Oh, for me, I mean, a puzzle game has to have really good puzzles. I'm not too bothered about kind of philosophical story or whatever. For me to convince me on the Turing test, I think I would need to see a more extended demo with some, proper hard puzzles in, which are going to be kind of mind-bending, like Portal and particularly some of the later puzzles in Portal 2. I mean, they got really hard, and that was really enjoyable. So I mean, the ones in the trailer, you just saw kind of little flashes of them.
Yeah.
But it looked like they were probably flashes of earlier levels, because they looked quite, get the ball from there, the ball of light that he was sucking into his gun, throw it into there, look, the door's opened.
Yeah.
And I think it would need to have a bit more complexity than that to start to really impress me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there will be more to the puzzles, but it did look fairly simple. Just put this box and this switch to activate this, and presumably that's from earlier on in the actual game, and it's not going to be, there'll be far more to the puzzles than that, I would assume. But it's something we'll find out more about at the time, I'm sure. So yeah, and then this one you requested, especially Karl, Overland, which was that kind of procedurally generated post-apocalyptic survival game, which I thought looked quite interesting. I liked the kind of isometric, almost like Populous style view, where you only see like a section of the world around you on like a flat grid. I quite liked that. What did you think about it, Karl? What grabbed your attention most of all?
I will buy anything she tells me to buy.
That'll be Heather Pen.
Yeah, so what was you described her as? Yeah, your E3 waifu. But yeah, I mean, her aside, I did think the game looked quite interesting, so it would be kind of interesting to see more of that.
I wasn't really too impressed by it. It just just didn't get it. I mean, I know that procedurally generated things, the key is them being different, but I still couldn't work out what the hook of the gameplay was, or how it would work, or if it
Yeah,
would.
I think for myself it was more. I think it was visually interesting. It was something that kind of interested me. I think you are right. It was hard to kind of see exactly what the gameplay of it was, but visually it kind of caught my attention, and I liked how it looked. And like I said, the fact that you could only see that one kind of square bit of land at a time and what was going on top of that, I liked that. So that alone's kind of piqued my interest, and it's something I'll kind of pay attention to as time goes on and see what we get from it. Okay.
Yeah.
No, Karl. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh,
No, I
sorry.
knew Scott. I knew.
Moving on. No. A serious comment. The art style was really appealing. I mean, I really enjoyed that. I'd agree with Dragon. I mean, you particularly for a procedural game where some of the hooks just going to be situations that the game kind of generates randomly.
Uh-huh.
I think again you need a more extended demo to kind of see some of that, some of those chaotic elements kind of influence each other and create kind of interesting situations. I mean, that's got to be the point of a procedural game. It's that kind of emergent properties of the map that it's generating, or the gameplay that it's generating, or whatever. I mean, that's why you would choose to build a procedural game over just designing your maps.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Next up we have Dual Universe, which the very first kind of impression I have under it is just the word I don't know. It didn't really do anything for me. But Dragon, you seemed quite taken by it.
For me, it looked like No Man's Sky, but the way the developer talked about it immediately set it apart in that I've got an idea of what to expect from the gameplay, more than just run around and explore the land. He talked about working with other people, like other human people that play the game, to build cities, wage wars, come up with political systems, things like that. Just make a civilization. So it feels like a cross between the expansive galaxies and universe of No Man's Skies, but with the creative aspects of civilization.
Yeah.
To all rolled into an MMO, I guess. So it leaves you with something that could be huge and fantastic, and as I say, immediately sets itself apart from No Man's Sky in that at least for me, there's a much clearer idea of what you do in the game. With No Man's Sky, there's a lot of dancing around. It's a big place. You explore, but then what else? At least here, there's kind of a goal: build civilization, recreate humanity.
One thing I did quite like about the way he said it was it's almost the opposite of No Man's Sky in how it puts you in the world. No Man's Sky, they've made a big, Sean Murray's made a big deal about the fact that everybody starts at the outside, the outer edge of the universe. Everybody's, right at the back, and that they're trying, the goal, so to speak, is to get to the center of the universe. Whereas with this, it's like everybody starts at the same point, and you expand out from there. So I quite like that, and it's the opposite of what No Man's Sky is doing in that respect. And obviously, it does kind of go with what he was saying about wanting to make a lot of cooperative gameplay, a lot of different elements of working with other players to do things, which obviously you can't do if you do it the way No Man's Sky is doing. So yeah. And the only other thing I have to say about that is that I noted down that the guy sounded like a French Geordie. So, yeah. First, I thought he was a Geordie.
One concern I kind of have about the setup of that game is that if you come to it late, I wonder whether you would have to go quite far and get quite far into the game before you get that experience of exploring uncharted territories. He was saying that as you go further and further away from the starting point, you're going to have to be better and better at the game. I guess that might mean higher level or better gear or whatever.
Yeah.
And at first, the first wave of people, I mean, they're going to have a great time kind of putting those initial settlements out there. But I wonder if you come to this after a year, well, they're going to have to make sure that the scope for the new players.
Yeah, it's like, when everybody starts, you'll be able to discover stuff quite quickly. But like you say, if you come to a year later, you're going to have to play for longer to get to the point where you can discover something that nobody else has.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
I guess it's just a trade-off for making a game like this, and what is pretty unique, at least from what I've seen. So, I mean, in some games it does pay to get in on the ground floor. Usually it's multiplayer ones where you don't want to be outclassed heavily by people playing it for years, and here it's, if you want that new discovery feel, it's like Dark Souls as well, I guess. A lot of the enjoyment comes from discovering everything yourself, and you're more likely to do that if you play it on launch when everyone's in the same boat and no one's really discovered anything.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a very good point. And yeah, I mean, I still haven't decided where I am with No Man's Sky yet, whether or not I'm going to get it. This obviously does similar things, but it also does a lot of things that No Man's Sky won't do. So in that respect, it's quite interesting. But yeah, it's one to kind of keep an eye on, I think, rather than a definite, oh yes, I'm going to be wanting to get that. Okay, so that brings us nicely up to Razer and their big mouse and keyboard living. So I just wrote M plus KB and then Love Hearts next to it, because that was basically the gist of the section.
You forgot the most vital aspect of
Go on.
the Razer advert. Multicolored LEDs.
Oh yeah, multicolored LEDs, absolutely. But the only other thing I made a note of was that guy saying "Raffle stomping newbies," and I'm convinced the whole thing was them taking the piss. I really am convinced they were just taking the piss. They have to have been. They can't have been serious about half the stuff they were coming out with it.
I do remember I read about this because I was watching it after it had aired, so I read about Razer had a segment, and as soon as the host said keyboard and mouse, I just skipped over it, but I'm tempted to go back to watch it just to get some colour in my life.
Yeah, I mean, it was only a few minutes long. It wasn't a long section, but it was a section where they basically advertising Razer's products. And there was one guy in particular, he said, when I'm, playing Bastion and Overwatch, raffle stomping newbies, and I'm just like, oh, for God's sake, mate. Just like, and then he said something else, and I was like, no, he can't be serious. He has to be taking the piss. So it's worth it if you want to laugh, stroke cringe for a couple of minutes. But yeah, I mean, and yeah, obviously LED light coloured keys, which is always entertaining.
My favourite part was when he says something like, "We appreciate how passionate our fans are about what kind of mechanical switches they use in their keyboard."
Oh, it was a piss take. It has to have been a piss take. There's no way they could have, been saying all that and actually been 100% serious with it. Because how ridiculous does that sound? Madness. Okay, moving on from...
The confused quietness afterwards.
Yeah.
If you go back and watch it, it was like... clap.
Okay, that was a thing that just happened. Yeah, no, it was strange. Very strange. And then... Oh, actually, yeah, it brings us on to... Well, something we mentioned briefly in the Microsoft conference recording was Halo Wars 2, which I was pleasantly surprised to see turn up in this. I'm pretty sure I'd heard it was going to be in the PC, but I hadn't really thought about it until obviously he came on with it. So yeah, that was quite interesting.
It looks good, and as I said, I'm glad to see RTS games coming back into just getting more exposure and more of them being developed, because I played quite a lot of Red Alert when I was growing up. So I've always been a fan of the genre. I never played Halo Wars 1. I think it was Xbox exclusive, wasn't it? That
Yeah, I
probably was
don't think there
why.
was a PC version of it now.
I didn't like the idea of an RTS on the console, so I just skipped
I've
it.
tried it with I think with Command and Conquer 3, and it was horrible.
So I'm looking forward to this because it did look great, and as a host, I don't know his name, but he's a great host anyway. As you said, you can't have too many RTS games, so
Well, that's true. Yeah,
I'm very keen to get it.
I can't remember what his actual name is, but he does a lot of commentating. I think he did StarCraft. I don't know if he still does, but he did like StarCraft 2. So I remember watching some of his streams, and he was quite good in them. So when I seen it with someone, I was I know who that is. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, the only thing I would say about Halo was it was good seeing it being played with an actual mouse, a cursor and stuff. So I was like, oh, that's really cool. But at the same time, I did feel kind of sorry for the Microsoft guy or the 343 guy who was there talking about it. I'm just like, you've developed a console RTS, and you're here telling PC gamers about why it's great. It's like they're like, yes, come and tell us about your little console RTS, Xbox man, which I thought was quite, I was like, they're just going, yes, this is nothing new to us. But yeah, so I think Halo Wars 2 looks interesting. I think certainly having Creative Assembly on board is going to give them some more legitimacy behind it as well. So I think that's only a good thing for them, and it'll be kind of good to see where they go with it. Okay, and that brings us on to another one that you want to talk about, Dragon, Mirage: Arcane Warfare.
I didn't pick up Chivalry on launch, but when I did grab it, I played it a lot over a week or so, and it's fantastic. So any sequel is gonna just show up on my radar highly, and high on my wish list. But I always liked Magic, and most of my RPG characters, all of them are wizards and whatnot. So having Magic going into the Chivalry combat just makes something I really enjoyed even better. So, I mean, I literally signed up for the beta as soon as he said, you can go to the website to sign up. So I'm ready for that in summer,
Cool.
and I'm very likely to buy this day one. It's definitely one of my end of year purchases. But I'm looking forward to it very much.
Excellent. And Karl, what about you? Did you ever play Chivalry?
Yeah, I played a bit of Chivalry, and I liked it. Sold the sequel for me in the trailer was he had his wee magic man, and he was dancing about doing stuff, and goes to make what you think is going to be a fireball, and then wham! It's just a giant spiky bowling ball that whacks the fellow on the head.
Yeah, I think
visceral.
I think
get behind that.
Yeah, I think it definitely looked really good. I liked that it was quite bright and colourful, compared to Chivalry, which okay, it's a medieval combat simulator, so it's always going to be greys and browns and mucky kind of looking. But I liked this at a kind of Eastern feel to it, like Asian Indian architecture, which was quite interesting. So I thought that looked good. And Chivalry and Magic, it can't be a bad thing. So yeah, definitely one that I'm maybe gonna keep an eye on. I might actually sign up for that beta myself and just kind of see what's going on with it. There's been a lot of betas announced in the past few days, that I think I'm going to need to kind of put my head down for, especially kind of going off topics like the Titanfall, and I'm going to put my name down for simply because I fucking love Titanfall. But yeah, I think Mirage is definitely one that I'm going to be looking at. Okay.
My disappointment is that it feels like it's been around for a while. I mean, a lot of the games in EA and Microsoft's conferences were at E3 last year, and Arcane Warfare, I feel I've heard about it a while ago, and I'm kind of disappointed it's not out yet. But at least it's gearing up for release at the end of the year, so it's nearly there.
Yeah, I mean, I think this, the PC show wasn't too bad for us. I think there was like a couple of games shown that were also here last year. Also, there was Lawbreakers, I think, was mentioned last year at least. And obviously it was kind of shown this year, and I think it's been in closed beta for a wee while now. Well, if we've got time, we'll maybe talk about that briefly. But yeah, so I do like that it's mostly been kind of new games or games that are out soon that they're showing, which is quite good. Anyway, moving on, Deus Ex, which is that's up there with one of my favourite game franchises of all time. So anytime I see something about the new one, I get a little bit kind of yee. So all I've basically said to that is looks awesome, and I loved Human Revolution. So yes, I will be getting Mankind Divided.
I didn't play Human Revolution or Invisible War, but the original is pretty much unparalleled in how fantastic it is. So if the new one comes close to that or even half as good, it will be a great game.
I'm
looking forward to it.
I would definitely say if you haven't played Human Revolution, play that first, because this carries on from after that, and unlike Invisible War, it's not shit. So yeah, Invisible War, I've not played much of it, but it's not anywhere near as good as the first one. Whereas Human Revolution does, brings it quite up to date, but still kind of feels like Deus Ex. So yeah, definitely give that a shot, man. If you're looking at Mankind Divided, because it does follow on from it. But yeah, man, I can't wait for that. I think that's out next month actually. So, oh god, I'm gonna spend so long playing that. What about you, Karl? Are you down with Mankind Divided?
Well, Deus Ex is my favorite game. Straight up, no. And Human Revolution, I mean, it was good, and it was a Deus Ex game.
Yeah.
So I mean, unlike Invisible War, which just wasn't. But I thought Human Revolution, its one big fault was that compared to the original, it sometimes lacked subtlety. And I wasn't encouraged by the scene in the trailer. I made like a mental note of this, where the wall, there's in his kind of scanner vision, there's a big structural
defect
in this wall detected. Yeah. And it's just like all cracked everywhere. And I was like,
yeah, I think I'm looking at it and I'm thinking they tend to kind of beef these things up for these trailers. So I'm going to take a guess that if that is early on in the game, and I think they said it was the first level actually, I'm going to guess he doesn't have access to all those abilities necessarily off the bat. Because certainly in Human Revolution, to get to the point where you could do that punch through the wall move, you had to upgrade a couple of times to get there. So I mean I don't mind that too much if they've maybe just souped them up a little bit for demo purposes, and it's somewhere you can maybe come back to later on. I don't know, but yeah, no, it didn't bother me because you could do that in Human Revolution as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem in principle with that, as long as it's like a late game augmentation that you have to work really hard to get, and then you get a super scan mission that tells you how to play the game. Fine, okay, that's reasonable. I would hate for it to hold your hand from the start, get a kind of Hitman detective mode style thing that you can just kind of use and abuse. At the same time, the developer did say that you turn some of that stuff off. I think he mentioned it really briefly. He was like, yeah, if you don't want that kind of thing, that's just a setting you can turn off, which I thought was a good decision.
Yeah, because I think they kind of properly announced the game a couple of days ago, and I watched the kind of reveal stuff they did, and they showed like a chunk of one of the levels and so on. And I'm pretty sure they did say that there was stuff you could turn on and off. and from what they showed certainly the other day, they showed a lot more than they did today. It's got the same kind of openness that Deus Ex has, and and how you handle situations. And they showed them doing it quite stealthily. But what they would do is when they were showing it, what they were doing, they'd kind of shrink the screen slightly and then show two other smaller screens showing different approaches that you could take, which I thought was quite cool. So it does seem to have the same choice that you've always kind of had when you approach situations. So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty hyped for it. Okay, which
that's encouraging. I'll definitely get it.
Yeah, man, it's even just watch the footage they gave it a couple of days ago. It's well worth seeing. And like I said, I kind of like that it's the settings, different from Mankind of Human Revolution, and that obviously time's passed and the situation's worse for the augmented people than it was then, which is kind of cool. But yeah, I don't really want to say too much because I'm going to make Dragon play Human Revolution.
It's on my list.
They're a bit top of your list. Anyway, moving on. Speaking of Deus Ex, they then right at the end wheeled out the venerable creator of Deus Ex, Mr. Warren Spector himself, who gave a lovely kind of talk on just how awesome PC games are. So I mean, it's always good to see somebody of his kind of stature, kind of getting behind things and kind of feeling positive about things as well. The fact that he's like, we're living in we're in a golden age at the moment. With VR, 4K, with all this new tech that's coming out. We're going to be able to do things we've never done before. I thought that was really cool. And yeah, I mean, it's always good to have like somebody like him, turning up. So yeah, I mean, Karl, what did you think of Big Warren?
He renounced completely, brutally, Invisible War, which
Yes, he
got
did.
me on board instantly. He could have said almost anything after that, and I would agree with him.
I think that how he highlighted that PC gaming was something great, but then the money was in console gaming, and it kind of helped reduce PC gaming from what the wonder it was to effectively people saying it was dying and dead.
Yeah,
But he didn't shy away from that, and he accepted that, yeah, we made Invisible War. It was a product of the time.
exactly.
We had to follow the money. But he admitted that it sucked and it wasn't as good. And that's the thing, he didn't lie or hide away from it. He accepted it, so you could see he really cares. And then he went on to talk about how the format is still evolving and it's a good thing, and how developers that really care about their work will embrace new technology, and it does end up benefiting gamers. So it was a fantastic section and a wonderful way to round off the show.
Yeah, it definitely kind of rounded it off quite nicely for me, and it was, like I said, it's always nice to see somebody of his stature coming out, and having things to say. I always think he looks like a science teacher or a tech studies teacher, though.
He'd
Just
be the best teacher ever.
Oh, he'd be awesome. Just like his wee tank top and his sleeves rolled up. But yeah, I mean, the guy's made some of the best games ever made. It's when he talks about the industry in general, you stop and you listen. So yeah, it's always good to kind of see him, especially to have somebody kind of come out like that and then say, yeah, this isn't great, but this is because this is why we had to do things like this way, and that's fair enough. I mean, I think there was definitely a point where all the money was in consoles and publishers weren't interested in PC because they could make consoles were exploding. So of course they're going to put all the money into console games, and developers, as much as it's easy to say, oh, they should, if they don't want to make those games, they shouldn't make them. But they have to live as well. They need to make a living, So yeah, I mean, sometimes you just need to swallow your pride and go and do something you maybe otherwise don't want to do. But certainly these days, I mean, there's so many options open to people who want to make games, and it's a fantastic thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's sorry, you go, Karl.
Oh no, you go ahead.
Karl
You
will go.
answer.
Karl will go. Karl will go.
Cheeky will edit this bit out. I was just gonna say it's super encouraging for System Shock 3. I mean, it's
Yes.
knowing that that's I guess thinking that might have been kind of ported to PC rather than developed primarily for it was disappointing.
Yeah.
Knowing that Big Warren is there at the helm, and it at least gives a thorough impression of genuinely caring about it. I mean that's very reassuring.
Yeah. No, I think it
Yeah,
was
it's
definitely a
good.
great way to end it.
It's
John.
good to see that even now there are PC games that are still being developed to take advantage of the hardware. So System Shock 3 won't be, like you said, a console game ported to PC. It will take advantage of its uniqueness, the format's uniqueness, and yeah, going back to what Devin was saying, it's a fine line to tread in that you need to make money, so you go where the money is, but you want to make something you're passionate about, and maybe that's a PC game that won't be as lucrative, but at least now with games coming out and pretty much everything, you can get a bigger audience to at least fund those passion projects.
Yeah, no, it was a fantastic way for them to round it off, and I'm glad it was there. What I would say is it was not the only time tonight that somebody kind of called out something in a conference, and I'm not going to go into any detail, but because it's part of the Ubisoft conference, so I'll mention it in that. But Yves Guillemot said some stuff at the end that was quite, if you know the situation with Ubisoft at the moment, Ubisoft and Vivendi, you can kind of tell exactly what he was meaning. But like I said, I'll go into that in more detail in the Ubisoft post, which should be up at some point tomorrow. But yeah, so I think that's a good place to round it off, guys. That's us coming up in just on an hour, so I think we've gone through some interesting stuff here now. I just want to thank both of you for joining me. So thank you, Karl. Thank you, Dragon.
No, thank you.
Thank you. It's been good to be here.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure having the both of you. So yeah, I mean, but before one final thing before we go, highlight of the conference and score out of 10. Karl.
The highlight for me was definitely the Razor adverts, and for that alone would have been 10 out of 10. So given we saw some decent games, it's got to be a solid 12, maybe even 13 out of 10 for me.
Well, high praise indeed from Karl there. Dragon, what about you?
For me, highlight's probably going to be Tyranny. The setting combined with the type of game, RPGs. I don't have as much time to play them now as I did, but it's always been one of my favorite genres. Makes it really stand out, and the way the trailer was put together and the voice acting just really makes me hopeful that it's going to be a fantastic package. But there was a lot of great stuff in there.
Yeah.
The Turing Test, Halo Wars, Mountain Blade 2. We didn't actually speak about that, but the Siege stuff there looks fantastic. And Killing Floor 2. Just a great show. And with Warren Spector to round it off.
Cool. And score?
I'd say an 8. I'd give it a 9 if, ironically, I know AMD sponsored it, but if
it had been Nvidia sponsored, it would have been 10.
Well, Nvidia, easy 10, but yeah, an 8 is a great show. A little bit to improve, but
yeah,
easily the best thing I've seen all week so far.
Okay, I'm gonna be a little more critical of it. I mean, I think there were definitely some good games there. I think for me, my highlights were Dawn of War, Deus Ex, and Giant Cop. I just thought I'm sorry, Giant Cop looks awesome. They looked fantastic.
Just the name.
Yeah, Giant Cop. It's like, oh god. I think the whole trailer thing they showed was alluding to mean Giant Cock, but what the hell. But yes, for that I thought that looked really good. So but I think it went on a little bit too long. I think there was a lot of stuff that they couldn't. I think that and I appreciate obviously AMD and Razer sponsored the event, so they kind of of course they're going to want their moment in the sun. But if they'd gotten rid of that, they would have cut a good 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes off the show. As it is, I think it ran a little bit too long. And I think a lot of the games there, while interesting, they're not necessarily games that I'm looking at and going, oh my god, I'm really, really interested in that. So for me, a little bit lower, I'm going to go maybe a 6.5, 7 out of 10. And that will round us off for the evening. So yeah, one last time guys, thanks for joining us, and we will be back with our next video, which is going to be about Ubisoft. Some interesting stuff to talk about there. And I will see you guys later. Catch you guys. Bye bye.